First off here, let me do a quick screen share. I thought I'd start and pick on Charlie a little bit. Specifically, there's a whole bunch of birds that a photographer the next island over, I'm on Hambly, it's on Downey, he just continues to take bird photos, artistic ones and very crisp, factual ones. So I thought I'd just run a few of these things by Charlie because it's important to realize what's there. Charlie, what is that?
It's a great crested flycatcher.
You can tell that on that fuzzy picture? Oh,
yeah, look at the rufous tail, the yellow breast, the gray throat. That's all you need to see.
Amazing. Well, what's that?
Well, they're Canada geese, but depending on where you took the picture, they may be Canadian geese.
Gotcha. All righty. Here's
one of my favorites. That's a cedar waxwing. Beautiful little bird. Look at the band in the tail. There's a yellow band at the end of the tail.
I see that, yeah.
And it's got a crest like a cardinal, but of course it's not a cardinal.
Yeah, the beak looks like it too. Okay, how about this one?
Well, it's a male woodpecker, I'm sure of that. The red spot on the back of the head. The photographic angle makes it a little difficult, but if it was taken in your part of the world, it's probably a hairy woodpecker. There's hairy woodpeckers and downy woodpeckers, and the length of the bill is the cue, and this looks like it has a fairly long bill.
Okay. How about this? This guy looks so much like the previous picture.
Yes.
You can see the difference. Yeah. What's this?
And look at the length of the bill there. It's almost 3/4 the depth of the head from the base of the bill to the red spot. So that's a hairy woodpecker for sure.
Okay, a hairy woodpecker on Downey Island. All right.
Oh, okay.
How about this guy, this monster?
Yeah, that's a northern flicker. It's actually it's a woodpecker that actually forages on the ground, specializing in ants. It'll explore an ant hill and take as many ants as it can from it.
Amazing.
Now that one's a little challenging. It's another flycatcher, and from the lack of field marks, it's probably an eastern phoebe. And if you look, there's 2 lines on the wings that birdologists call wing bars, and his are not very well developed, and that suggests that it was a bird that was hatched this year, because when it gets its full adult plumage, it won't show those 2 lines.
Interesting. Wow. We all know this one.
Yeah, I hope so. Goldfinches, American goldfinches. They occur in Canada too. Male and female. You say that was taken on a nearby island?
Yeah, right next door.
It has to be a ruby-throated hummingbird then. It's the only summer hummingbird we have in the Northeast.
Whereas John Street's backyard is loaded with them.
Oh, yeah, he's probably got Anna's hummingbird. And
you could do another hour on hummingbirds.
A bunch. And there's your emblematic common loon. The first one was an adult in breeding plumage, probably, and that was a winter plumage bird or a subadult youngster.
Right.
And mute swans, not a native bird, introduced probably by English settlers from England years ago, and they're spreading now throughout New York. And a pair of mute swan. Look at the curvature of the neck. That and the orange bill give it away as a mute swan. You've got 2 other possibilities on the St. Lawrence, and that's tundra swan and trumpeter swan, and white-breasted nuthatch.
I love this.
And Baltimore oriole, beautiful bird. Male.
Why do you think he's perched there, Charlie?
Well, he may be thinking about pulling some caterpillars out of that tent caterpillar nest below him. They will eat caterpillars. And these are great. These are the biggest woodpecker in North America, the pileated woodpecker. And this is an unusual shot to me. The bird on the right is a male because the mark from behind its bill is red, the mustache mark we call it. And the one on the left is a female because her mustache mark is black. And or the forepart of her head, her forehead, is not red as it is in the male.
Interesting. I would have never known.
So you can tell.
We won't remember.
You can tell males from females if you get a close enough look.
I can.
That's song sparrow at a feeder.
Whoop.
And red-winged blackbird. Beautiful little bird.
Very territorial and noisy.
Yeah, we have them at our feeders.
And the last
That overall look is probably a female Baltimore Oriole. Much paler looking. The beak is Oriole type beak. I'd guess female.
Interesting. Okay. You did well, Charlie. Every time I talk to you, I learn something.
I only got about half of them right, Ken.
Well, we're going to take you as the authority here, Charlie. Going to put up just a few questions here, and then we'll wrap up with, okay, not this one, right there. We'll wrap up with things that are put into the chat. Okay. Go ahead, John.
You know, one of the things that I've seen a lot on the river, and everybody has seen a lot on the river, is all the cormorants that are around. And we were talking about some of the damage that happens to the trees in the islands. And I kind of wondered for Charlie, what's the process of healing that? Like, do islands recover? How do they go about doing it? How does this, this has been happening, I'm sure, for centuries. So, like, how does nature remake itself when birds come in and acidify the landscape so much?
Well, the cormorants will eventually kill the vegetation that they use for nesting, which sounds counterintuitive, but it happens. And as you pointed out, the products they leave behind acidify the soil. They're high in nitrates. Bird droppings are very high in nitrates. And so it will eventually kill the vegetation, and the cormorants will leave, move to another place. The interesting thing is that I have seen parts of the Thousand Islands and a lot of pictures. They look pretty rocky to me. And I imagine it would take a long time for that island that is inhabited by cormorants after they've moved on for it to grow trees. I bet that most of the islands were deforested by 1900, and that what we're seeing now may be regrowth of over 100 years. And it's a very, very slow regrowth. So those of you who are residents there may know more of the human history of the islands, and maybe they never were fully deforested. I don't know. But if indeed they were on those rocky islands, and probably even naturally acid soils, given the frequency of conifers I've seen in the pictures, it will take a long time. And that's just part of ecological succession. It's not something that we see in a short period of time, really.
Yeah, thank you. Now, you talked about history, doing bird counts. Turns out last week is the annual loon count. And this is the data from the group that did the loon count between Grindstone Island and Picton. And I understand it was done all throughout New York State and the Adirondacks and so forth. Tell me just a little bit about counts before we move on to the next one.
Asking me?
Yeah, bird count. You've done a few.
I have done a few, quite a few, over my lifetime. Well, there's two ways you can approach it. You can count them one at a time, or you can count the legs and divide by two. An engineer might do that. It requires patience. With loons, it's probably a little easier. They're large, they're easy to identify, and they probably stay pretty much in the same area, especially if they have a nest or young. So you don't have the challenge of them moving about the landscape, and you simply get volunteers who know what loons are and have some patience and go out and count what you've seen in a predefined area. That's the critical part.
Okay. Because these were all done. Everybody did it from 8 to 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
Last Saturday, a week ago.
I'd expect the loon counts are more accurate than counts of other birds that we have that move around a great deal.
Interesting. Beauties or beasts?
I think they're beautiful birds. I really do, but they are not native necessarily, and their feeding habits can disrupt aquatic ecosystems, they actually have such long nests they can reach down and pull out aquatic plants by the roots. And so it eliminates the regeneration capacity. So a lot of waterfowl biologists really consider them pests. In Maryland, there's a hunting season on them, and I imagine they would make a nice Thanksgiving dinner. They're large, but I've never tasted any of the mute swans before.
Interesting. Tell us about these swans. I've never seen a picture like this before.
No. Well, on the St. Lawrence in wintertime, they're more likely to be trumpeter swans or tundra swans. Mute swans, if there's very cold weather or frozen water, will move south. We see a lot of mute swans more actually in wintertime on Cayuga Lake, where I live, than any other time. The stains on the neck and head of the two birds on the left suggest that they've been feeding in waters that contain iron, and that suggests that they're either trumpeter or tundra swans. With their heads tucked like this, there's no way that I can tell the difference. The thing that's fun about these, and I used to watch ducks on the ice when I was at Sapsucker Woods Bird Sanctuary at Lab of Ornithology, when they're sitting on the ice, their legs are tucked in the down feathers of their breast, and we've all perhaps worn outer garments in wintertime that are filled with down, and it's a very warm material. So their feet and legs are not actually touching the ice on which they're sitting. They're pulled up into the insulation of the down feathers on their breasts and bellies. So they can sit there for a long time.
Okay, and the surprise question.
Yeah, I asked you a question. When were these photos taken?
The one on the left, or the right rather, was taken in June.
Okay.
Some of the other ones were taken last year and a couple, 2-3 years ago as well.
Well, just pure speculation on my part, and they're American white pelicans. There are no breeding records of American white pelicans in New York State. They are a western bird or a northwestern bird. And if these were taken in June, they may have been late migrants. They may have been subadult birds, that is, they were non-breeding birds, and they may have just been hanging out. It's possible, but not likely, they were actually beginning their southeastward migration. These birds migrate from northwest to southeast. They overwinter in Florida, and you can see them there in Florida quite a bit. Again, we do see with birds, the one on the right, for example, is in breeding condition. If you notice the knob on its beak that's silhouetted against its black wing feathers, that's a breeding condition adult. The birds on the left look like they're not fully mature, and the bottom one is possibly the same bird as the one on the upper right because it has the knob on its bill that indicates breeding condition as well.
I never saw that.
The other exciting possibility is, pay attention, you might have the first breeding records of American white pelicans for either New York or Ontario province, and that would be very exciting indeed. In New York State and maybe in southern Ontario too, we've seen sandhill cranes return in the last 25 or 30 years to areas in the northwestern part of the state, north of the Finger Lakes, where they perhaps bred when the first settlers arrived. And so birds change their patterns over time. And I'm particularly interested in the bird on the right that looks like it's in full adult breeding condition, adult male.
Interesting. I'll have to check the reference on that one. And I'm going to go ahead and do this as long as we've blown the time schedule, John. I very proudly took pictures of the Hambly Island, just right down from my dock, osprey family. Year after year after year, they kept coming back and building this huge nest on a tree that eventually died. And so I was really pretty proud of my pictures. And then I got talking to John Street. John, you want to explain the rest of this?
Well, I actually didn't know Ken before this whole thing happened. Like I knew Barbara, and I knew Ken's. I knew that Barbara had a brother that lived right across there, and I didn't realize they were one and the same until Ken called me this time. But so we would go see Barb from time to time, and on our way downriver, we'd typically go inside of that little island, head down past Glen House, makes a nice little regular kind of pathway for heading downriver, and there was that great tree with osprey nest in it, and so we always tried to figure out an angle that would work, to try to, if you get too close to the bird, you're shooting right up at it and you can't see it anymore because it's inside its nest. Well, so you got to kind of be far away. But
you explained to me you got on the boat on that cruise away, and someplace far, far from the island, you did this.
Yep.
Up close.
Yep. So I tend to be, it probably was a high water year. I mean, the issue is the angle, right? So I was, oftentimes if we're with a group of people, I would have someone else take the wheel of the boat at that point in time and stand up on something high, stand up in the back of the engine cover, not an outboard, but an inboard, inboard engine cover, or up in the bow part of the boat where I could get as high as possible so I'd have a chance to be seeing close to their level. And I think it's kind of really neat, the orange eyes of these. And Charlie, I think you can help me if I'm off base here, but I think that's one of the marks of a juvenile, right?
Yes, it is. I think the adults have yellow eyes, bright yellow.
Yeah. And at first I didn't know if I was seeing a different kind of animal or not, but those things, they check you out. You can tell you're seeing a predator when they look at you because they look at you. They lock eyes. And
I was struck by the dirty breast. The bird needs to wear a bib when it eats all those fish. And then
very true.
The one on the right did this.
Right. Yeah, they're majestic, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Definitely. Okay. Any questions from the audience? Go ahead, Renee. Well, have you got any?
Yeah, well, so it's kind of interesting that what people are interested in is to know what else these two that are so interested in birds and photography, what pictures would you like to get that you haven't gotten in the Thousand Islands? So perhaps from those that are here on the call, they're wondering if they've seen what you would like to see next.
Well, the first thing I'd like to see is Charlie Smith in the Thousand Islands. So I think that he's due for a visit up here in person, and so we can celebrate together a little bit. The one direct answer I have is exactly what we just said, which is, hey, I love seeing those photos people take of the time of year when the loon babies are out and they're riding around on the parent's back. I haven't seen that. I also have seen some really cool photos of what are they, the mergansers, where they have this habit of having a daycare almost, where many parents will leave their chicks in the care of a parent who's swimming along, and they've got 10 other birds families swimming behind them. I just think that would be kind of fun to see. But so the answer for me in general would be mostly behavior things. At first I wanted to see animals I hadn't seen, and then I wanted to get a picture of them. And now I've gotten some pictures of them, I want to see things that they do that I didn't realize they do. That's what's next for me. So for the people who are there at times of the year that I'm not, which is I only typically am able to spend 3 or 4 or 5 weeks there, you're usually there at a time when I'm not. You'll see a whole host of things that I don't see, and I'd love to.
My experience
with Thousand
Islands have been wintertime experiences, because at Point Peninsula State Wildlife Management Area, it's a great place to see wintering birds of prey, things like snowy owls and rough-legged hawks and short-eared owls. And then my wife and I have spent time in winter and a little bit of summer on Amherst Island off of Kingston, Ontario. Again, in the wintertime, it's a great place to see winter birds. And in the summertime, it's absolutely beautiful. I remember being there over one of the wetland areas in summer with my wife and listening to Wilson snipe displaying and calling overhead. And that was lovely. I just love to see that white pelican in summertime on the Thousand Islands.
Go ahead, unmute and ask your question.
I just want to say how wonderful all the photographs have been and what a lovely meeting this has been.
Thank you, everyone, for attending the TIA 2020 AGM. Sorry if we blew all your data on your phone. This is our first attempt, but we've had a wonderful time together. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Meeting is adjourned.